All righty. Okay, I'd like to call the Local Agency Formation Commission meeting of December 2nd, 2019 to order. Please conduct a roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Orth,
Here.
Commissioner McCowan,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Ward, sorry, Chair Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Ward,
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner Bazzani,
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Here.
Commissioner Rosenberg.
All righty. Now we'll move on to item 2. This is public expression. These are for items not appearing on the agenda. Anyone that would like to speak, please come forward and state your name for the record. Seeing no one coming forward for public expression, we'll move on to other business. And that is item number 3. So we're on 3A, regular meeting schedule for 2020. This is to establish the 2020 regular meeting dates.
Madam Chair,
Commissioners? Yes,
I would
sir.
move approval.
I would second.
Do we have any public expression for our calendar for 2020? Seeing no one, please conduct the roll call. Oh, did you have something, Uma?
I just wanted to note that our legal counsel is on the phone.
Oh, I forgot to do that. Thank you so much. Mr. Scott Brown is on the phone and will be with us throughout this meeting today, and he is our legal counsel. So please conduct the roll call vote.
Commissioner Orth,
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan,
Yes.
Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner Bazzani,
Yes.
We know
Commissioner Ignacio.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to item 3B, and sad, but yet it's joyous to be able to recognize one of our commissioners, and this is a certificate of recognition for Commissioner Rosenberg, and I would like to read it into the record. Whereas Carol Rosenberg was appointed as an alternate public member on Mendocino LAFCO in 2015, and whereas she contributed significantly to the accomplishments of the commission, and whereas during her tenure on the commission, her experience and dedication have been invaluable. Now therefore be it resolved that the Local Agency Formation Commission of Mendocino County does hereby commend Carol Rosenberg for her valuable service and leadership as a member of the Mendocino Local Agency Formation Commission, presented on this second day of December 2019. Thank you, Carol. We really appreciate all you.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to serve.
Thank you for sitting in for me, too.
Scary, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I take a picture?
Oh,
Now you have to have that big smile again.
Big smile.
Thank you.
People have been freezing up in front of the cameras for hundreds of years.
we won't miss you, Carol.
I'll be listening carefully.
1.7.
And let us know. You have a comment.
That
All
was
right.
100, hadn't it?
Moving forward to item number 4, this is our consent calendar. And the following consent items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. So we have 4A, 4B, and 4C. Commissioners?
I'd like to pull all three, if I may.
Yes, you can, sir.
Thank you. We'll start with, if we may, the minutes for October 7th. Although I wasn't there and I'll be voting to abstain, I did watch the video. It was pretty interesting. It was about 2 hours watching you in action. And on page 6 of the 58, down at the bottom, the paragraph next to the bottom, they named all the speakers for the public hearing. And I think, is Mr. Lidd here? The last name wasn't included. Is Randolph? Is he here? No. Anyway, I think his last name was Lidd. And then on Mr. Bentley, it was Ray Bentley. Just wanted to make sure the
Yeah.
names are correct in the minutes.
I missed that. Thank you. So staff, you,
John has a question.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's actually a few of the other names that are not quite correct. The first one is Shar Jacobs with no A. Then we had Craig Blencoe, I believe it would have been, or was there a Glencoe?
It's Blanco, and he is here, and yes, his name is misspelled.
And then also Terry DeSelke. And I'm not sure of the correct spelling of DeSelke, but that could probably be reviewed.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes. Any other comments to the minutes? Seeing none, do you have further comment?
No, not in the minutes, but I can go into the,
Well, why don't we have action on the minutes first?
sure.
Move approval as corrected.
We could do that if you would like to. Okay. Then we will move on.
Okay. So again, I wasn't here at the October meeting, but I did want to go over some of the errors on the claims.
Page.
Well, you know, page 11 of 58 is the application tracking. And I would like to clean up the Weger detachment. Do you have that in front of you, Uma? You have 6,100 as a budget amount, and then if you take the amounts that we've expended for that, you have a negative 953.15. It should be a negative. The good news is it should be a negative 436.15. The bad news is that they're in the hole, and it's been our policy to not get in the hole and to accept a deposit to keep it. I believe that was a discussion at the October meeting regarding the Irish Beach one, that we don't do any more work, so I hate to see that happen. And then if you follow through into the next month's claim, the Weger, the negative of 1733.15 should be 1216.15. So I just want to make sure those corrected.
I will double check those numbers. We did have 517 that were spent in the previous fiscal year, and that has been carrying
Okay.
through, so that might be the issue.
Yeah, that's another thing that I would like to, on the tracking reports, you put the account balances of our checking account. And then if you follow through from one month to the next and the checking account, it doesn't jive to what we actually were claims against it. It'd be nice if you could add any deposits that we received underneath there. It would also help me to, when we review our financials at the end of the year, that I could track the deposits with the claims to see that everything was included in our financial statement. I know our financials for June 30th have already went to the auditor, and that was one of the checks that I made to make sure our deposits were included, as well as our claims were all included in the financial report. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you could look at that. The other thing is that you have highlighted in the tracking
Right.
that was from previous months, but they were expended actually in October. And so your claim report doesn't jive with the tracking
And
report.
that's 11 of 58.
Right. So I just, whatever month you spend the money in, that should be it, so I could track that as well. Makes it a little more confusing.
Okay, I think
I
there's
could
a-
go over it
What?
with you later, but
What I'd like to do, since you're the treasurer, and you have these concerns, it's probably all going to settle out, but I would very much suggest that you meet with staff
Okay.
within the next couple of weeks to get it,
all right, and I have a couple more.
okay?
On the work plan, you have the amount on the tracking that we have spent year-to-date, $1,309. And then on the schedule, I'm not sure, it might be page 12. You've only expended 561, it should be 1309, unless there's the amounts, it wouldn't have been from a previous year, so
Off to date.
those would have to be 1309 as well, what we have spent. And then if our attorney is listening, the last couple of months, he has not been putting down the hours that he's expended. He just sends us a flat $600. In the past, we would be able to track the amount of hours versus what we spent. I don't know if you're listening, Scott, but it'd be nice if you could go back to your old ways of providing us the hours.
And so we're looking at the expenses,
For the Scott Brown attorney.
right, so 24, 25, then I think there was another one.
So it just happened the last couple of months.
Yes.
Yeah, I went to a new billing system, Gary, and that's why you got that.
Yeah, because I was tracking last year the cost per hour based on what we spent, and I reported to the commission that your rates were reasonable, and I want to continue to say that, but I need to track it.
Okay.
Okay, and so the other pages are 15 and 16.
Correct. And then just for a note, we're 1/4 of the way, or 25% of the way. No, we're a third of the way through our deal, and we've only.
It's about 42%.
Well, I'm looking
the
at our
budget
work
year.
plans. We've only spent 3%, and we're, one-third of the way of our budget. And I'm just wondering, are we gonna be able to get back on track with our work plans? The
I can
last
give
few
you an
months.
update now, or I can give you an update.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we're not spending that money on those work plans, and I want to make sure we keep moving forward.
And I think the work plans were discussed at the executive meeting 2
Okay,
months
good.
ago, and the need to keep on track. Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move approval of the consent calendar, noting the corrections to the names of the public speakers on the minutes, and the corrections as noted to the budget and application tracking for the work plan and for the Weger detachment. And I think it's maybe can just be direction that the attorney hours be included on all future forms.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second.
Thanks for following along with that. Good.
Any
I
public
pay
comment?
attention, or I try to.
Seeing no one come forward. Commissioners, we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Orth,
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan,
Yes.
Chair Brown,
Yes?
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Bazzani,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosen.
Can I vote?
Thank you.
Pardon?
You need to make her tell you you're last. You get to vote last.
That's okay. Okay, next item on our agenda is a public hearing item. And this is for the Weger Detachment from the Mendocino Coast Health Care District. A bit of a explanation about what occurred. We continued the public hearing, and the meeting was scheduled for 11/4, and it was canceled due to the public safety power shutoff notification as required by state code and under Brown Act. We did discuss and weigh all options, and after discussion about costs and what have you, it was deemed appropriate to renotice and go forward with another properly noticed public hearing. and that is set today. So that's the explanation. I do need to discuss a little bit and advise the public that the commission will accept testimony today, particularly for those who may not be able to make it to the continued hearing if it is continued. However, they can wait to testify until January, and that would also be preferable. I'm going to be opening the public meeting at this point. We'll hear a staff report, but we'll accept any testimony before considering it to the January date and time. And commissioners, the only action the commission really can look at today is one, to continue the hearing to a date and time certain, or close the public hearing and determine to reopen it and renotice it at a later date. And that would be after the tax exchange process is completed. We will have an explanation for that. So the procedures for a public hearing is staff presents the staff report and then responds to commissioners' questions. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present and respond to the commission. The district will be given 10 minutes to present and respond to commission questions. After that, the commissioners can ask questions of the public or of staff, and the commission at that time can make additional recommendations or discussion of how to move forward. I cannot receive a motion until the public hearing is closed on the actual item itself. So, and once that happens, then it is before the commission, if it does. Commissioner McCowan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to note for the record that I was not present October 7th, but I have viewed the audio-visual recording of the meeting segment dealing with the Weger detachment.
I did so as well.
Yes, and I had both you marked down to ask you that question, and Treasurer Ward made the comment that he had, and I appreciate the fact because that's what needs
It's
to
required.
happen. It is required. Okay, we'll go forward with the staff report. Uma?
Thank you. So the commission did hold a public hearing on October 7th on the proposed application, which was continued to November 4th. This is a newly noticed public hearing, but the information and testimony that was that occurred on October 7th does carry forward with this application. So as it became clear that the application was generating controversy, LAFCO staff reviewed it in detail with our LAFCO counsel, Mr. Scott Brown, who is on the phone today. We were advised that the application must proceed through the tax share agreement process at the county level, and that has been initiated. We have been coordinating with the county auditor's office, and they have completed the initial calculation of tax share that is available for the renegotiation, and they are in the process of going through the next steps with that. So staff and our council, so we have participated in 2 conference calls with the district during the last month. During that time, we were informed that the district board did meet and discuss this application and were unanimously voted to oppose the application to LAFCO. On November 25th, we received correspondence from the district's attorney, which has been included in the agenda packet on page 33. The applicant has provided a written response to that and has provided hard copies for the commissioners today. You each have a hard copy at your desk. So in consultation with our council, staff is recommending continuance of the public hearing to allow time for the county to complete their process. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so there is a step.
Uma, I can't hear you. Uma, please get the microphone closer to you.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Brown, can you hear her now?
No. No, she has to get the microphone quite close.
Is this better, Scott?
No.
Maybe if you
Well,
switched places. to
I
do
can't
it.
physically get closer. So.
That's what I'm saying, she might be closer.
Go up to that one.
Okay. Yeah, let's get closer.
I can hear you, but it's not every word. Particularly when you move your mouth away from direct line of sight with the microphone.
Is this better, Scott?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Technology.
I would like to ask, you said there has to be an action that's taken before the Board of Supervisors?
Correct. There has to be an agreement of how the tax share will be redistributed by the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, the Board of Supervisors only has 3 meetings left before the January 6th. Did the auditor indicate to you that when that item would be ready for the Board of Supervisors agenda?
She did not. I did ask for a time frame, and she wasn't sure at that point.
Okay, so we really do need to check on that because the only dates, it's on deadline now for December 10th, Board of Supervisors meeting. And then there are 2 left, one for the 16th, a special meeting, and one for the 17th. And then they wouldn't meet again until January 7th. Okay?
Okay.
And I don't know if, when we take a break, if we do today, that we might want to run up there and check on that, because I don't know if she's aware or not.
I can do that.
Commissioners, further comment of staff for the staff report?
So if it's not ready for January, what happens then? Is that going to be a problem for the applicant?
I don't know if it's a problem or not. I think we did discuss that previously. Commissioner McCowan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was my understanding we've already gone past the date where they would be required to pay another year. So I don't know that a month or 2 makes a financial difference at this point.
I
And
think,
Could we get confirmation maybe from either our executive officer or the council?
That's my understanding, yes.
and
I
that
think-
was discussed at the last meeting,
Yes.
the
And
timing.
the difference has to do with continuing the public hearing to a date and time specific. So the January 6th, you could open it again at that point and continue again, or we could close it and renotice it, or continue it to the February meeting. I believe those are the options.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Brown?
Yes, I mean, I think it's, you can do either one, just so long as you continue the public hearing to a date and time certain.
Okay, that'll be part of the consideration. Commissioner?
Madam Chair, I was just wondering, in the interest of giving us time, and since we're probably past the date for the applicants for this year as far as their taxes, that if we end up continuing it, just to continue it to February, and that way we have that time.
Okay, that would be one of the considerations. Okay. Staff, any more on your report?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. So now I will go to the public for public expression on this particular issue. If anyone has comment and cannot be here at either the January or if it gets continued to February date, please come forward. You can give testimony. Okay. Seeing no one coming forward, Commissioner McCowan?
I did have some questions on the first page of the staff report under discussion, 3rd paragraph. it states, as it became clear the application was generating controversy, LAFCO staff reviewed the project with LAFCO counsel. LAFCO counsel advised the application must proceed through the property tax transfer process. I would think that might be true, whether the application generated controversy or not. Is that accurate,
That to Scott?
counsel?
Yes, it had to, in all cases, go through the property tax adjustment.
Well, as you're our LAFCO legal expert, it's a little disappointing that this only comes out now, and I'm wondering what additional costs all of this may be driving on the application. And so I have a dual concern. We may be in a position of paying you more legal fees than had we had all the accurate information to begin with, and the proponents of the detachment may be in a position of paying more costs due to more time and complexity involved. So that's a concern maybe you can review with our executive officer.
If I may, the reason this happens this way, if I may, is that because of the very limited budget, I do not regularly review items on your agenda. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I see Commissioner McCowan speaking, so it's hard for me to tell. But you know, unless you want us to change our procedure and have me regularly review every item on the agenda, then this kind of thing will happen from time to time. The current budget doesn't really allow that.
Well, I just want to say you've been aware of the detachment for some time and have been consulting with our staff for some time, so I'll leave it at that. The recent letter from the attorney for the district states that we have not properly complied with CEQA. I don't think we have to go into a great deal about that now. I certainly think that should be thoroughly reviewed by you, and is the common sense exemption appropriate, or would it be more appropriate to do an initial study, which for this type of thing probably wouldn't be that complicated? There'd probably be a limited number of issues that might need to be addressed in any detail, but I'd appreciate you reviewing with staff whether we have properly complied with CEQA.
We have been discussing.
Thank you. And thought there was another legal issue that came up, but if it occurs to me later, I'll communicate it to the executive officer, and she can pass it along to you.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have
Go forward.
one other comment, and there is, of course, a new letter from the district. It lays out a number of arguments, and some of the arguments, or the way that they portray things, indicate a belief, or they assert, that a majority of the registered voters in the detachment area voted in support. And I'm not sure how you can determine that, because there's no separate breakout for the detachment area. There is only a breakout by precinct. But another way to determine the truth of that could be to determine how many registered voters are in the detachment area. That and their names is a matter of public record. I think it may be less than 40 people total registered voters in the detachment area. So I don't know if the registrar of voters would be willing to provide that information, but it would be curious to know how many registered voters were there, and who are they, and which of them voted. And it's a public record that you voted, not how you voted. So if it turns out 20 people voted and 12 of them are proponents of the detachment, it would tend to indicate a majority of the registered voters in that area did not support the tax measure. And I don't know, that's just my thought process. I don't know if anyone thinks it's worthwhile to.
Well, it's going to come at a cost to someone. And perhaps, since the district raised that issue, it should be a cost to the district to bring that evidence forward.
If they believe it to be true.
Correct.
I'm fine with that, Madam Chair.
Yes. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a couple comments.
Okay.
Obviously, I wasn't at the October meeting, but I still have some questions. There was some discussion from our analysts about if the taxes are going to be taxes going to be redistributed if they don't have to pay them. Did we ever get an answer on that? Did Larkin come up with an answer?
I'm sorry.
There was some discussion about what happens to the taxes if they're not paid. Do they go somewhere else? Do they just go away?
So they revert to the county, and that tax share process that we have to complete is where the Board of Supervisors decides where to put that $5,000, or approximately $5,000. And so that's the resolution that we need to continue processing the application.
Okay, that's part of the tax sharing.
That is the tax sharing agreement, yes. Because there's not a tax share between agencies, it just reverts to the county, and that's where the confusion with the Revenue and Tax Code 99 came, was that it just reverts to the county, but the Revenue and Tax Code requires the county to state where those funds will go.
Okay, and then there's been a lot of discussion in the papers about Chi Adventist purchasing the Fort Bragg Hospital. Of course, I'm sure there's lots of things to look at financially, including the bonds and whatnot, but the district board basically voted unanimously not to support it. I would like to know what the Chi Adventists feel about it, if they're going to go forward with it as well.
I think it's a management thing, not a
Not
purchase.
Not
imagine.
purchasing.
Yeah, they
It's just
basically,
managing.
Okay. It's just that that might have a little bearing on, because they probably prefer that those same residents go to Ukiah, because it will be a hospital that they actually own as well. Those are just some of the questions that had come up while listening. I'm sure there's many more, but those are the ones that didn't get answered or not talked about.
Yes, and Larkin's not here, but I want to again hear the financial impact, as was in the staff report for the last meeting, and what percentage of that is to the entire funds that are raised.
We did rough estimates in the last staff report, and we were very conservative with the numbers. So we estimated about $66,000 in Measure C taxes would be represented by the area proposed for detachment, and there was approximately $5,000 in property tax portion that would be lost to the district from that detachment area. Those are very conservative numbers, because that doesn't take into account the waivers, the multiple APN waivers, and I think there's another waiver that I can't think of off the top of my head, but those are the high-end numbers.
And as I remember, you did have a percentage?
I don't remember that off the top of my head, but we'll include that in the next staff report again.
Well, I think it's important to do that.
Yes.
Commissioner?
I'm curious. why the hospital district would think that there would need to be a CEQA when there is no absolute change to the physical landscape or to the provision of services, and that the only difference is a matter of tax sharing, which is paper stuff. So there's no physical change whatsoever, and it's never come up with other transfers of this kind.
Mr. Brown, do you have comment?
Well, this is precisely why we applied the general rule exemption to begin with. And we are reviewing it, of course, but we generally feel that we haven't yet seen any physical impact on the environment that could result from this act, which would justify or necessitate CEQA review.
Madam Chair?
Just one moment, please.
Well, I believe
Commissioner.
Commissioner Ignacio
Okay.
may have.
So if you're in reference to the CEQA violation in the notification from the district, they're saying that LAFCO did not properly notify certain divisions of the state of California agencies of the detachment application. That is their claim for the CEQA violation, not something necessarily physical and environmental.
That was noticed to the clearinghouse where all state agencies, is that what you're referring to?
That's what I'm referring to their letter and their
Their-
claim. It doesn't necessarily mean that we actually did that. It just says there's the appearance that we didn't notify the proper agencies in the process, which I believe we did, and I believe staff did.
Thank you. Commissioner McCallum?
Thank you. Well, and then the district, to follow that point, asks in their letter, do we have documentation that these specific sub-agencies were notified?
We do.
Thank you. But back on the CEQA issue, I believe the district's claim is that, gosh, if we don't get this amount of money, and CEQA law has evolved to interpret environment pretty liberally, so I believe they're suggesting that if we don't have these funds from this area, we might have to close our ambulance service, the hospital might go out of business, we won't be able to provide the services that we've been providing, and that will change the social and economic environment of the community. Because we all know the hospital, of course, is a vital facility for the coast. So I think that's the claim, and so that's what I think legal counsel needs to review. Is there merit to that, or maybe it's just a fact-based thing? Here's the amount of money involved versus the total Measure C money, and how is not having access to that amount of funds going to result in the dire consequences suggested in the letter? And I note particularly the statements that, gosh, the ambulance service will be imperiled. The ambulance service actually makes money for the district, not a lot, but I believe it always comes out in the black. So that's not a good example of how there is, the potential for these serious consequences that require a lot of study and review. But I do think we should review, have we done, if we continue to assert the common sense exemption, have we done the minimum analysis required to get to that point to say, yeah, there's no way this one item is going to have these negative consequences. I mean, I kind of think the exemption applies, but have we done enough to be able to demonstrate that?
Okay. Do you have any response?
That is one of the things we're working through with our council.
And if there's some question, maybe just going ahead and doing the initial study might be a cheaper route in the long run. And frankly, it's disappointing that the district is brandishing all these legal swords. I guess I'm starting to state an opinion. It's just a little disappointing. they're seeing it only from, how does this affect us financially? They're not, apparently not considering, is it equitable for this area to be physically within the district?
Commissioner?
Well, since I'm leaving at the end of the month, I feel I can say my opinion briefly, which is that it seems to me that this is taxation without representation kind of issue, and that the issues raised by the district do not really affect the fact that these people are paying for a service that they do not receive, and that do not choose to receive, and that they were not properly notified about when the tax for them was established, that there was insufficient information. So,
We are beginning to get into
sorry.
debate on decision-making, and that can only happen once the public hearing is closed.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So we need to back off of that, and we need to discuss the options we have here to continue to the January date of the 6th, or there has been a suggestion by one of the commissioners that we carry it forward, continue it to the February 3rd meeting.
Can we ask the applicant if it's okay to go to the February?
We can ask the applicant, would you like to come forward?
I would. I have a number of things to respond to that have been brought up here.
Okay, and because you probably also are going to have to repeat all this if there's continued, if you'd like 10 minutes of time, please come forward.
Okay. I guess, oh, yes, I have a number of things that have been brought up that I would like to address. And then very briefly,
Yes.
is this too
Identify
loud?
yourself for the record.
Oh, I'm
please.
Lisa
Yes.
Weger, and I am the petitioner in this matter. First of all, you asked about the deposit. At the last meeting in October, Uma told me that we owed additional money, and she had estimated that we would owe some additional money. So those monies were paid pretty promptly. And since then, I know that a substantial additional time has been spent, and we will owe more money for that. And so we're very happy to pay that when, we're notified of that. So
sure she'll be
I know that we have, so that first.
Thank
thing.
you.
Yes. The second question, or the second issue that's been brought up is the whole CEQA thing. So I don't know if you're aware actually of how this process proceeded, but in the beginning, we paid $1,500 to do an initial study of whether or not we were going to proceed forward with this. So Uma did the initial study. It addressed the CEQA issue. That was probably the biggest issue we cared about. If a CEQA study is required, that's probably easily another $5,000. And we're not prepared at this time to spend that additional money. That doesn't mean that we're not prepared on principle to pursue these issues, but we relied on and I know that Uma consulted with your lawyer, but we relied at that point in time that it seems extremely obvious that CEQA is not involved, that we're not doing anything to the environment. It is simply a paper matter. And by requiring a simple report, what will the hospital turn around and do? What will their lawyers do? They will write more letters telling you what's wrong with it and that they need a full report. I mean, all this is, and this is so frustrating, which is sort of my last point, but I seem to have gotten into it now, is that if you look throughout this, the petitioners have stood here, told the truth, paid the money to have this done, and tried to follow the rules. And what has the hospital done? They didn't give us adequate notice of who was included in the district at the time of the election. They, since then, have written a number of letters and were completely aware of and involved in the process, and then claimed they knew nothing about it, which was completely false. And they've had their lawyers write letters which were essentially just throwing mud on the wall and seeing what sticks. If you really look at critically at any factual, have they made one factual allegation about the CEQA? I haven't seen one. Have they made one factual or legal argument about a number of the issues that was raised in the last letter? I haven't seen them. And if you would please carefully read my letter in response, you will see that I have provided facts. Throughout this, the petitioners have provided facts. And I also want to say that your staff did a very, very thorough job in analyzing this. And their initial conclusions obviously were that the detachment would proceed. The other point that I'd like to make is that you were asking about the registered voters, and that's an excellent question. However, if you look at the statutes governing detachment, there's sort of two ways to go. One has to deal with registered voters, and the alternative has to do with landowners. So a huge number of the landowners in our area don't vote, and some of them, they don't vote out of choice. They sort of live off the grid. And then also, some of the landowners are corporations. They can't vote. And so there's a second means to bring a detachment, and that has to do with the percentage of landowners. We have the support of over 70 or 80% of the landowners. So in any measurable analysis, we have gone above and beyond in terms of asking for a detachment and doing all of the things that we should. Well, and so I would urge you to read my letter. It contains a lot of facts that respond to their mudslinging. And the last thing I want to say is that long ago, this quit being financial. This is about a principle. It's about the principle that should we as people have no say in our government because it's too expensive, we have to hire lawyers, we have to do CEQA reports, or should we be able to come here and tell the truth and have our opinions prevail? Oh, and the one last thing when it comes to telling the truth, as I've said, I thought that the hospital has thrown a lot of mud, but I just want to say that I thought it was completely shocking that when Mr. Beck did the ambulance, and if you haven't read my letter, you may, but maybe you've already noticed this, but did the ambulance test, sending an ambulance from Ukiah and an ambulance from the coast to see where they met. I hope you noted that the ambulance from the coast started in Mendocino on Little Lake Road, not at the hospital. So why not at the hospital? Because the hospital is 15 minutes north of where Little Lake Road in Mendocino is. And even if you look at where he came out and you put it on Google Maps, if you put the address, which I have noted in my letter, on Google Maps, it's very, very close to the intersection of Low Gap Road and the Comps-Ukiah Road. Do you have any questions for me?
I do.
Just one moment, please. Yes.
Yes.
Stay there, and
I have
the
questions.
commissioners may.
Would you
Commissioner Ward.
Would you be okay if this being postponed till February?
Yes, but what I was going to ask for today is I actually was hoping that public comment would close, because as long as public comment continues on, the hospital is going to do more mud raking. It would be preferable to move it to February than to cost us the money of renoticing it in January and then having to pay to renotice it again in February. And also, Commissioner Brown, I appreciate the point you made very much, that the hospital keeps asking for this and that and this and that. They don't supply it, and so if they want staff to do it, maybe they should pay for it. You know, they just continue to want us to pay for what is going on in this process and continue. So the long and the short of it is I would, obviously it would be better if it was in January, but if it's going to be continued again, then yes, February is preferable.
Hopefully we can get an answer on the tax item break. You thought we might get it from break?
If we take a break, yes.
Okay. I mean, I think it's this commission's intent to do it January too, but it may be just too close.
Impossible. I understand that.
Because of holidays and stuff.
No, I understand that. It's impractical. It was disappointing the November meeting was postponed, but we can't control Mother Nature either.
Can't control PG&E.
Commissioner?
Mostly a question, or comment is, that was my intent with maybe kicking it to February so that we didn't have to go through the expense, not to put
Right.
it off the decision. It's just more, I've been
It's a
down
sure
this road
thing.
before with things, and it's an expense and a time thing, and it's easier just to agree to just postpone it to give everybody more time is better. But I think if we can get a break, then maybe we'll maybe get an answer.
Commissioner?
Well, it seems unlikely we'd have the information we need regarding action by the Board of Supervisors on tax sharing prior to February. We might be fortunate to have it by February. And it in part relies on
Speak into your microphone, please.
It in part relies on action by another county department.
Okay. Thank you, and I will ask the district if they have any comment. Seeing no one come forward. Commissioners?
And one more thing, I mean, it's a somewhat unusual tax sharing issue because normally it's territory is moving from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, so it's there's some trade-offs there. Here, it's simply detaching from the district. So I don't know that it necessarily needs to be that complicated. And I don't think, and so it'd be really, and maybe this is a legal question. Normally, if it's territory moving from one territory, from a district to, say, a city or a county, or vice versa, city or county to a district, the Board of Supervisors would, quote, negotiate on behalf of the district, is my understanding. Is that right so far, counsel?
Yes.
Now, in this situation, it would be territory and taxes going away from the district. So who is the Board of Supervisors negotiating with, or are they merely weighing the pros and cons and determining what they think is fair and reasonable?
Actually, I don't know that they have that kind of discretion.
Well, I'm asking what would be the process where it's not a tax sharing between two jurisdictions per se, where territory is moving from one to another, territory is simply coming out of the district. What's the process for that tax sharing agreement to be reached with the Board of Supervisors, and who do we reach it with?
I understand that process, of course, is outside LAFCO jurisdiction. But my understanding is that basically this board would simply decide where the $5,000 goes. And it can either pass it, give it back to the county as part of its apportionment, or it can choose to apportion it between the other agencies within the same tax apportionment areas.
Okay, well, and it's just kind of laid out how it's split between other districts that might be involved, probably none, but the schools would maybe get the majority of that 5,000.
There was a fire district
I was
within
going to
there,
say,
too.
yeah, there's
There
a
is
fire
fire
district
district in there.
that has an influence too.
It
Commissioner
doesn't
Orr?
seem like it should be that big a deal.
I would just say this could be an issue for Service Area 3 as something the Board of Supervisors could look at because it does have the powers to pick up some of these services, and it is under review by this agency. So I would just make that point.
Okay, commissioners, we are going to take a break, so staff can go and check with the auditor's office if a date has been secured at a Board of Supervisors meeting prior to the end of the year, or not. So we are going to go on break for 10 minutes.
Sorry, I got hung up on that tax issue.
Is that Carmen?
Yeah.
What was she doing?
She usually helps.
Okay. The commission is back and in session at 10:17. Uma, can you give us a report?
Thank you. Thank you for the time to connect with the auditor's office. We do have Shamice Covington here from the auditor's office to give us a brief rundown on the timeframes that they need.
Okay. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Shamice Covington, Assistant Auditor Controller. So, this is a large item for a lot of the property owners, but it's also not a whole lot of money. But unfortunately, this is something that the county hasn't had to do in many, many, many years. We've done annexations. Detachments are a little bit different. And we are slightly limited by our really old property tax system. So a lot of this has to be done kind of manually, whereas we would like to be able to put the numbers in the system, have it recalculate, come up with what the true impacts are going to be for the districts. So unfortunately, this has taken longer for us to calculate because we've had to do it manually and try to make sure that we're dealing with the right information. But once we've come up with those numbers, we're still required to provide notice to those districts who are impacted, even if it's not a whole lot of money, and give them the opportunity to negotiate on that impact. And then once there's a decision or a final negotiation, we have to bring that back to the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors for a resolution. So that process is going to take, probably a couple of months to conclude. And I don't know what the board's schedule is yet for the Board of Supervisors because that won't be adopted until January. So I can't say exactly when this is going to be completed. And I think the question is how long to continue it or when your next meeting is going to be. And I can't speak to that. So my guess, my hope would be by maybe mid-February we'd be done, but I can't really promise an exact date.
Commissioner?
It sounds, and thank you, but it sounds pretty clear that all of those things would not occur in time for this to come back to LAFCO on February 3rd, more likely at our March meeting.
I would guess that would be accurate.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes.
Scott, with that information, can we still move forward with and close this public hearing and make a decision?
Well, you have to continue the public hearing. You're not going to close the public hearing. It's only a question of what date you continue it to.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, they're calculating the amount that will be determined, and the board will approve it, but can we still move forward with a dissolution?
No, you may not. You have no jurisdiction to decide this matter until the Board of Supervisors has determined the property tax allocation.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One more question for legal counsel. It's been suggested that we might close the public hearing so we don't, presumably keep hearing similar comments that we've already heard to help expedite the matter. And so the question is, could we close the public hearing today with the exception that when we get this new information regarding the tax sharing, that portion would be open to public comment? Is that a potential way to proceed or not?
I don't believe it would be fair to all concerned for you to do that. Representations have been made that this matter would be continued so that people perhaps have not planned on attending and were planning on attending the continued hearing. So I would recommend that you not close the public hearing, but continue it either to a date or time certain or set it to be reopened after renoticing.
Okay, I didn't get to thank the Shamice from the auditor's office, and so we need to find out about that. But the two avenues that we have, even if we close the public hearing, we would have to re-notice it for a later date after the tax exchange process is completed. So continuing it is probably what we should do.
Less expensive to the applicant.
Well, I don't need to get into it, but I think you could close the public hearing in terms of taking public comment and still continue the item.
But there's people that won't be here that should be allowed to speak.
Understood. So anyway, it does sound like this should probably be continued to March 2nd, because it doesn't sound like we'll have the information in time for February 3rd. So I'd be ready to make that motion if you're ready for it.
Well, we don't have a motion. We'll have to have a consensus of the commission. Correct, Scott?
No, it's appropriate to do it by motion.
Okay, even if this is a public hearing?
Well, no, what you do is you simply say, we're going to close the public hearing for today and continue it to a time based on what the commission by motion determines.
Madam Chair, I believe what council's referring to is suspending the public hearing today and continue to a date certain.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to put it.
Okay. That's clearer. Okay. Commissioner
Well,
McCallum?
you would suspend the public hearing for today, and then we're ready for a motion, I think, is
Okay.
what I heard.
Then we shall suspend it for today. And I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I motion that we continue the public hearing at the March 2nd meeting.
Okay. Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
The motion should indicate the precise time and place as well.
The exact time, then we'll schedule it for, if you'd like to amend your motion and the second would like to amend, it will be timed for 9:30 a.m., and that would be March 2nd, 2019, Mendocino County Board of Supervisors Chambers.
As amended.
Does that coincide with what you need, Scott?
Yes.
To legally move forward? Okay,
I believe there's comments.
Well, I
Commissioner
was just going to bring up, I think it doesn't really matter time-wise, but we could have a special meeting in February after we learn the information and have it documented.
That's more cost as well to notice that.
Yeah, just trying to expedite this process, but I'll go along with the March 2nd.
okay. All righty. Seeing no other comment, commissioners, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Orth,
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Bazzani,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Chair Brown.
Yes. And I would like to note to the commission, we do have paperwork from the October meeting. We have paperwork from this meeting. Please keep it all together until we meet again on March 2nd, so it stays together. All righty. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on with the agenda.
It's online.
It's online. That's true. Not that- I guess, too.
Okay. So, workshop items, that's number 6 on the agenda for today. There are none. So we're moving on to matters for discussion and possible action. We have 7A, consideration of applications for alternate public member. Staff, do you want to do?
Madam Chair, can I have a question first?
Yes.
Is our attorney going to stay on?
Mr. Brown?
Are you going to continue, Scott?
Only if you want me to, but I'm just, as long as no other issues related to the Weger detachment are pending, I can certainly go off if you feel you no longer need legal counsel.
Yes, the only question I have, could you keep track of these hours for this particular item?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you. It's up to you whether you want to keep them, though.
Okay, Mr. Brown, I don't believe we need you because we may have some action items, but those items would not need legal help, technical help. So I appreciate you being with us today, and hopefully you can mark your calendar for March 2nd.
Yes, I will do so.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank
Thanks,
you,
Scott.
sir.
Do I need to lift up the receiver and hang it up? I can do that. You got it?
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have them continue. We didn't need them.
Is that all?
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Item 7A. Can you please give a presentation on that?
Thank you. We received, we did our noticing for an alternate public member. Commissioner Rosenberg's term expires December 31st of this year. We received one application for the alternate public member, Mr. Richard Winkle, and he is here today and would be happy to introduce himself and give a little background and answer any questions. This term will be starting January 1st through December of 2023. As a reminder, the LAFCO policies require the selection of the alternate public member to be subject to the affirmative vote of at least one of the members selected by each of the appointing authorities. So one from the city, a city commissioner, a county commissioner, and a special district commissioner. And Mr. Winkle is here.
Okay. Sir, please restate your name for the record.
Do I have to turn anything on here?
No, you're on.
My name is Richard Winkle. My friends call me Dickie. When I retired 15 years ago, I served on the Calaveras County Water and Sewer District for 12 years in the 90s and was their rep to LAFCO back then and worked on a lot of utility extensions. And I have to say that of all the public meetings and public boards that I've served on, the LAFCO board is probably the least calm. The amount of turf defense was staggering. And so I've been here, I know what you do, I listen to what they do. When I first moved to this county, which is 12 years ago, having been in politics for most of my adult life, I served on the grand jury here to get a lay of the land, and I did. And Carol Rosenberg, I served with her. She was a great mentor. I did get to know which county, which public agencies were effective, which weren't. Back then, I was younger. I was still in my productive stage. I'm no longer in that stage. I no longer wish to be in front. I'm 72 now. What I can do is I can lend my considerable expertise, my ability to view large models quickly. And I know at least 3 of the people here, and I'm sure all 3 of them would take me out back and duct tape me if they could at some point in time. But they're 3 people that I respect, and they've worked hard. And if I'm going to be an alternate, I think that that would be exactly what I would like to do. I can be in the background and I can serve as a consensus maker. And I look forward. If you would like me to serve, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant, commissioners?
I just have one. How did you find out about this position?
A fellow Rotarian in Willits Rotary who mentioned to me that they thought that this would be a good fit for me and sent me a PDF of your application, and I filled it out and sent it in.
Just want to make sure our $529 that we spent on advertising got to the right places.
It wasn't Jerry.
Okay.
Jerry and I are fellow Rotarians, by the way. He's not going to hold that against me, I hope. Yeah. Any other questions I might?
Commissioners? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Orth?
I'll make the motion to appoint Richard Winkle to be our alternate public member of LAFCO.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you,
Commissioner?
Madam Chair. I'd prefer more choices rather than fewer, and personally, I would like to see us keep it open another 30 days and see if we get any more applicants. I'm not suggesting spending any more money on advertising or asking staff to do anything. I think we could each, if we wish, just mention the opportunity to people that we know. So I won't be supporting the motion on the floor at this point because, again, I would prefer to have more choices.
Do you feel like there will be other choices?
Well, we'll find out.
We just haven't had it in the past.
Well, if we appoint at our January meeting, I mean, that's the beginning of the term.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
No?
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bazzani?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Chair Brown?
Yes. Okay. Moving forward on the agenda, we are on 7B, Executive Officer Services Contractor Annual Evaluation. So it is an evaluation of the contract and the services. I would like to schedule that for the January meeting. And the January meeting, I did have it marked down, is the 6th. Okay. I can't find where I marked it down. Thank you very much. That'll be on the 6th. I'd very much like to have a hard copy of the evaluation that you received in your packet to me. If it's by email, please put confidential on your email, and it can come to Brown CJ at mendocinocounty.org. If you bring in a hard copy, please have it sealed, and please put the same thing, notation of confidential and privileged information. And it can be dropped off here at the executive office, and be sure to tell staff that it is confidential.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
did we get the evaluation forms?
We do have hard copies to hand out so that you can take them with you.
Sorry about that. I thought it was.
Yeah, I messed up.
Okay.
And you would
Sorry, I have one.
And you would like them by December 20th?
Yes, thank you for date certain.
Can you repeat your email again? Sorry.
Okay, it's Brown CJ. There's lots of Browns in the county.
Yeah.
At Mendocino County .org.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry about that. I had one, and, okay. And if you don't want to come this way, especially if you live on the coast, you can mail it.
If it's okay with you, I'll probably fill it out, scan it, and send it to you in PDF. Is that all right?
That is perfect.
Okay, can I make a comment real quick?
Yes, sir.
I know you're very busy and you're doing an excellent job, but I think it would be nice to congratulate Mr. Winkle on the result of that last vote.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're doing great. I know we're busy.
It's a tough day today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And
Welcome.
first Monday of every month. And we had the calendar for 2020 in our packet today. So you might want to make sure your planner for the entire year of 2020 is marked.
Thank you.
9 a.m. It's,
First Monday here.
yes, yes, sir.
With one exception, September, it'll be the second Monday.
Already changes.
Oh, thank you.
And I just want to point out that
I'll give you my email and
and Dickie, the agendas and all that meeting materials also on the
you,
website
John.
too.
Yeah. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much. It's just me today.
It's a tough day.
All righty, moving forward on our agenda. We are on 8, information and report items. So 8A, Uma.
I'm going to do a verbal report on 8A this time. We just have this very few changes. We still have the 2 active proposals. We have the Weger application, and then we have the Russian River flood control and questions about serving Redwood Valley County Water District. That one is kind of open and just answering questions, so that's a bit of a back and forth with our general manager. We have no changes to the applications on hold. We still have the City of Ukiah Detachment and Ukiah Valley Sanitation District served areas. We have the Moore's annexation to Irish Beach. I have had additional calls from Mr. Moore's in the last month. Still looking to move his application forward. No changes to future proposals. For an update on the work plan, we have sent out a request for information to the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District, and we'll be following up with them in the next couple of weeks. We have received a response from Mendocino City Community Services District in responding to the request for information, and have started that that administrative draft MSR and sphere update, and we hope to have an administrative draft in January. Not for a public workshop, but for staff to start working through with the district. And that's all I have for the updates on that.
Any questions of staff? Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, you did hear my comment during the financial reporting that
Yes.
we've only spent 3% and we're a third way. Yeah, just my way of pushing to get these MSR SOIs completed, so just bring it to your attention.
Understood. We have spent a lot of time on the Weger application in the last few months, and but these are in progress. We are making progress on them.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, questions, we're on to 8B, correspondence.
No correspondence.
Okay. Moving forward to the executive officer's report, that's 8C.
I did want to acknowledge that last time we met, we had a request to add links and page numbers to the agenda. apologize for not getting that on the agenda this month, but we will have that in January. We did respond, worked with the State Controller's Office regarding their request for coordination, to assist with coordination with the Anderson Valley Cemetery District, and we were able to help them make that connection. So there's nothing further they need from us on that. And I want to report that the audit is currently underway, and we are anticipating a draft of the audit in mid-December, and I will coordinate with the treasurer on that.
Okay, and also coordinating with the treasurer on the financials?
Yes.
The reporting, so that will come back at our January meeting with whatever
Yeah, I just want to make
changes
sure it's
that are
all
needed.
correct, that's all. Yeah. And I will review the audit as well.
Okay. So committee reports, did we have a policy committee meeting? Policy and procedures? Okay. Executive committee did meet after our regular meeting on October 7th, and it was mainly to do what we're doing here right now, and that was discussing the workload, future projects, and work plan status. I did not note any future meeting agenda items that were discussed. And I would like to ask Commissioners Orth and Ignacio if they have something to add. Okay. All right, moving on to Commissioners' reports, comments, questions. This is verbal. Seeing no, oh, yes, sir.
Yes, I had the pleasure to attend the CALAFCO conference during the PSPSs of last month. Commissioner Cowan showed up as well, and I was there with Uma and Larkin. I attended the 101 and again learned, got a refresher on the laws involving LAFCO. I'm sorry, this is a kind of a brief report, but yeah, it was good just to go through and understand LAFCO's responsibility with regards to municipal service reviews and spheres of influence. They had several other sessions. The big theme this year at the conference was basically water, water everywhere, and none to drink, and what LAFCO's roles, what role LAFCO plays with local agencies during such catastrophes. There was a lot of, we expected a higher attendance, but because of what was going on with the power shutdowns in the state, it wasn't as well attended as the Yosemite the Yosemite conference from the year prior. There, excuse me, Madam Chair. Oh, another one that I found interesting was housing as a municipal service, and talking about opportunities and challenges for LAFCO's addressing the housing call. So I'm hoping the information gleaned from these sessions will make me a better commissioner going forward, and I'm open to any questions that the commission may have.
Maybe we'll have Commissioner McCowan chime in?
Certainly. Well, I agree with the comments thus far. I thought a lot of the workshops were very informative. They had good speakers, panelists. So that was very beneficial. I was not too wowed by the keynote speaker personally, but and then the issue maybe of most concern to us, the new dues proposal did sail through with room to spare, and my impression was it was pretty much a done deal. And I had a rather pointed discussion with one of the individuals who had been on the committee that worked on this, and there was a lot of work done over a long period of time. I'll acknowledge that. And that group ultimately recommended unanimously the proposal that came forward to us. And the reason being that some of the larger counties basically said, we're down to take it or leave it. We will withdraw from LAFCO if anything more than this is approved. So even some of the people very involved with LAFCO from other counties that were disadvantaged by the new dues structure kind of felt they were over a barrel, and that in the best interest of LAFCO, even though they understood it to be inequitable, they thought that it was necessary to support the structure in front of us, and held out hope that it was a work in progress and it could be revisited and be changed. But I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that personally. So.
Did you threaten that we would pull out too if they didn't do the schedule?
You know, in the private conversation with the one individual, I think I probably said something to that effect, but.
With the really small counties and the individuals I spoke to, it wasn't that hard of a financial hit on them. But counties such as ours with medium population, so to speak, takes a harder hit. But we'll call them the urban counties. I understand they're pushing their weight around at many of the state associations currently. Commissioner.
I think Commissioner McGowan underplays his role that he did representing the mid-sized and smaller counties. He was the loudest proponent to the fee schedule as he was directed to do so by this commission. And we were keeping a track of every vote from every county, even because there was about 15, I think, counties that were unable to send LAFCO because they just couldn't afford the conference with their smaller budgets. And even with that, we were overwhelmed, like he reports, based on the fact that the larger counties threatened to pull out.
And they do pay the largest fee. So.
Yes.
But they're also very highly populated and probably have more of a budget than some of the others. Commissioner?
Well, and, you know, the entire dollar amount, it's not like Mendocino County LAFCO can't survive that, but it's just that what I think we all tend to view is it's just inequitable. We're paying, although it's a small amount in relative terms, we're paying more than our fair share. And, you know, we all have the experience that rural areas of the state are already disadvantaged with so many actions that are taken in Sacramento where one size fits all is imposed. We have to figure out how to deal with it. So it's kind of just more of the same of lack of consideration for the more rural areas that are often also the more financially burdened areas.
Well, I'll take you with me to other meetings because
I think that's a good idea.
A lot of times that's not what you hear back from them.
Was there any panels on dissolutions, on how to dissolve from a district?
You know, there was something that came up. There was an example of, I'm trying to look it up here real quick. But I did make a note because I was like, wow, that's interesting. It sounds like what we're going through as far as, let's see. Yeah, there was a panel called It Takes a Village, and they were dealing with problem resolutions like detachments. And I was talking about what LAFCO could do with the service providers when they're not exactly doing the right thing. So.
Right up our alley.
When I ask who was elected for the rural caucus.
I believe our candidates.
From Humboldt?
Mr. Couch, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Humboldt and then
there was
Bill Conley to the state board, CALAFCO board. Was that?
I think that's what's correct, yeah.
Okay.
We voted for him.
I would like to thank you, Commissioner Ignacio, for mentioning that Commissioner McCowan really did speak up, and he was I think he did a really great job putting forward what the commission discussed at our last meeting, and I just wanted to thank him for doing that. I know it wasn't easy, and he was going on like 2 hours sleep, I think, and he did a great job.
That sounds normal.
Well, and I would like to thank Uma for doing some quick checking on my math on the percentages of proportionality, because if you look at it from that way, it really is inequitable. You know, the way they were shifting the money around, there were definitely winners and losers, and you know, a lot of it could have been resolved by adjusting the cap, but you know, I think it was pretty well predetermined.
Well, actually, I'm on my way to one of our state organizations' annual meeting after we conclude here, and it'll be interesting to hear from some of our colleagues about Commissioner McCowan and whether they were
Oh, I
there or
did
not, what
fire
they
up a
hear.
couple of them, I'm
Did you?
sure.
A couple, yeah.
That's why we've been pushing you to go to CALAFCO for the last several years.
Well, we did the right thing, because, I mean, he made an impact.
Good,
Great.
good job.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I would like to thank John. I kind of knew you would be a firebrand, and so I kind of pushed that on the commission. I'm glad I did, because I got between two dogs and got wounded, so I couldn't go. As well as I would like to report on the districts that kept services in the county and that kept services going during the power outage. I can tell you that in our area, there were 3 structure fires, 2 of which were definitely caused by people doing things inappropriately, candles, a cook stove, I believe. And, but our district, we had 2 sewer pumps go out at the same time in the same lift station, and our crew managed to rebuild one of the sewer pumps where we had a couple of inches left in our sewer well, which if you know anything about sewage, once it goes over that well, you're in a lot of trouble. And just amazing work. Our water crew had something like 15 generators to move around at all hours I mean, they literally were working 24 hours to keep water service going in our district. And I just have to applaud all the people who responded and kept this county working through another one of those power outages.
So when I earlier discussed about the different options we had, looking at whether we cancel the November meeting or not, you know, we didn't know whose power was going to come back on, who was receiving communications, who wasn't. Do you just go forward with the meeting and hope for the best, that everyone knows we're going forward? I mean, it was just, we talked over all the options, and it, you know, it was just too much for people because there was a lot of communication lost. Emails down, cell phones down, and I think we're all learning about the PSPS and what is needed, and it's just not districts and local government, it's also the people as well. We found ways that we thought would work as homeowners, ranch owners, that we need to change and do a better job on. And I think it was that way for everybody, but they're saying this is our future for the next decade. So we just have to do the best we can. But I would like to add that my husband and I have planned to go to Southern California to see our first grandson, who was almost 2 months old, or a month and a half, I don't know. A little bit more than that, but anyway. So we traveled.
He'll be in high school
Like,
before you know it.
yeah, exactly. All the 39 counties, I mean, we didn't travel all the counties, but there were 39 counties out. And every county we went through, once we went over the hill from LA, and on I-5, get over the Grapevine, and headed up, it was like, okay, where can we stop for gas? Do we see others gassing up at some of these locations right off I-5? And so we did, and we made sure we didn't get under a half a tank in stopping. But going through Sacramento, it was unbelievable with the traffic, but they had electricity on. And I was like, no, we're not stopping in Sacramento. And I think a lot of people were there because they had lights on. So you went through Yolo County, you were on your way to Colusa, Yolo was out. And so I just told my husband, if Colusa is on, we've got to stop and get gas. We're down to a half a tank. We don't know what to expect going home. And Colusa had just been turned on that Monday evening. And we were able to fill up there, but made it home and everything else, and thank goodness we did. It was very eerie driving through Lake County with no lights in each one of those cities on 20. Very different feeling that you had. But anyway, and Potter Valley did dodge the bullet because you talk about fires. We had the Burris fire, which could have been an absolute disaster. And we would have been reliving 2017 over from a firestorm coming out of Potter Valley, causing damage in Potter with lost homes, but going right into Redwood Valley again. And what saved us was the Kincaid fire. There were, I think, 12, 14 fire trucks from other areas
Ready to go.
headed on 20, headed to the Kincaid, that actually were diverted and kept it from going across the road on 20, which they were very nervous would go right into Lake Mendocino area, and then we know Redemeyer Road, Deerwood, Alexander Estates, etc., and very nervous about going into Redwood Valley. But the firefighters did a great job, because our forces were very meager, because a lot of them were down, helping with the Kincaid that could respond. And just one other point, CAL FIRE spotter plane was headed down to relieve the spotter plane pilot at the Kincaid, and he stayed and was able to say all the different directions that the fires were occurring. And the humidity was so low that once it got down, and with the warm wind and the velocity of it, it was just like, they said it was like explosions of dry grass that occurred. So anyway, enough of that, but we were very lucky. Sir.
I know that we've already honored Carol, but I just wanted to say that I really appreciated you being here with us, and you always seem to look out for the little one, no matter who that is, and I will sorely miss having you here with us. I'm glad Dickie stepped forward, and glad he's willing to serve, but Carol, thank you very much. I've learned a lot from you.
Okay. All righty.
I just had one comment back on the evaluation. The form has, A, exceptional, and et cetera. And then a note under it says, note, superior should not be viewed as perfect, et cetera. That's the only place superior appears. Should superior be considered to be exceptional?
I would guess this form was provided by our legal counsel, so I'm not
And he's off the line.
totally sure. I would guess so.
So
You could scratch it out and make yourself clear.
Or is it supposed to go over and above exceptional? But anyway, so I guess superior, we should consider that comment refers to exceptional. Probably the most logical.
I would think so.
Thank you.
I would like to let you know I'm going to go to the auditor's office and claim some more money for our checking account. We're getting a little low. We'll have enough for this meeting for next month, but I believe we have enough funds in there now that we can pull some more out. So I'll do that today.
So we don't need an action on that, though.
No, typically not.
Okay. Peers, no more business? Oh, I'm sorry.
8F, please.
Pardon?
8F, CALAFCO Business and Legislative
Oh.
Report.
I am so sorry. I thought we had done that. Oh, we talked about the annual meeting. I'm sorry. Staff?
Thank you. In your packet, there is a calendar of events from CalAFCO that they have provided. That's on page 50 of your agenda packet. And then there is a legislative update starting on page 51. They reported that there were 3 bills that were passed last year, and those are noted on that page for LAFCOs and boundary changes. I think that I was trying to remember the legislative report that was at the conference, just went over these that are in here, and then also noted that the omnibus bill for LAFCO is underway, and if there's any changes that to the CKH, minor changes that need to happen, then they're soliciting those. And I've also been asked to help work on some potential legislation for the Revenue and Tax Code, Section 99. Proposals for streamlining for some exemptions to that clause.
And I would like to ask you before we adjourn, do you have checks to be signed? And if you do, are they already signed?
Not yet.
Okay, you need to tackle 2 signers.
So
As
Commissioner.
soon as we adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
And I'd like it to be Commissioner Ward and Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you.
So these legislative update, is this all in 1 month, or this is year-to-date?
This is the annual update that's
Okay.
here. Yeah.
You can see why everyone in California is moving out. All these laws, new laws. Lots and lots of them.
Okay, that's it? Okay. But I wanted to think about those checks.
Yeah.
Okay, we're adjourning our meeting at, it appears, 11:03.
Wishing you all a happy holidays.
Absolutely.
Safe travels.
See you next year.
Yeah.